Welcome back to the Leopard Lair, and I am now joined by members of our speech and debate team as well as their coach. So really appreciate you guys coming on the Lair tonight.
Absolutely.
So we are joined by Katie Russell Greer, coach. Taryn Allgood. It's all good. Taylor Folden. And then the dynamic duo, Megan and Maggie.
Hi.
Bag. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so Katie, let's start with you.
Sure.
Coach, we'll start with the coach, as always. So coming off of a fourth place finish at Little Districts in Canton and qualifying a school record 22
Yes.
people, which is phenomenal. So
It is.
tell us how that experience was at Little Districts in terms of having 22 people qualify. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's interesting because throughout our regular season, there actually is a way that we some students are able to bid out and actually kind of qualify to state before the Little District tournament. And so we had 5 students that did that. And in my past 7 years, we've only ever had 1 or 2 students in a season do that. So we already felt like we were going in a pretty good position. And having had normally 11 or 13 qualifiers, which for our school size, our program size is very good and very competitive. I told the team after the fact that I was feeling a little cocky that morning, and I was like, we might be able to pull like 14 or 15 if the day goes well, how we want it to go. And, because speech is not just like a sport, it's not how fast you run at the end of the day, like the fastest kid wins. It's, we are relying on judges and so many variables, so it's always up in the air. But when we were seeing scores come in and I was starting to make my list of who was qualifying, and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and I was like, this is beyond what we expected. So it was a really, really great day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, girls, can you tell us a little bit about what your specialty is with speech and debate and what you guys are involved in?
Awesome. Me and Taylor are actually in the same category. We are in declamation. Do you want to explain what it is?
Basically, we'll take anything, a speech that's already been given. Most commonly used are TED Talks. TED Talks are really used in declamation, and we'll memorize it and maybe move it around a bit and memorize it, and then we'll give that speech to a small room of people.
Yeah, we basically just get a speech and make it our own. Something that we're usually passionate about.
Okay. What's the most difficult thing with declamation for you guys, to prepare that speech or whatever? Like, what do you find the biggest challenge going into a debate? Or I'm sorry.
I would say finding a speech that is going to hit well, which basically means that it's going to, is like for the audience, like something more common. Like I talk about racism. So something common. I think that like your type of speech or what you're talking about is probably the main thing in declamation. That's the hardest to do.
I agree with that. It's very much you have to find something that's both you're passionate about but also will hit well with your audience. So sometimes it's just difficult to find a speech like that. But I also find it like the declamation also relies heavily on the inflection of your voice and the way you say things and like your cadence. And so having to go through lines and just fine tune, like, do you go up at the end of the sentence? Do you go down at the end of the sentence? Sometimes we just spend like the whole practice just working through sentences, going over inflection.
So you give your speech. Do you walk out of that classroom like knowing you nailed it, or are you sitting there kind of nervous, like what'd you think the judges feel? Like, kind of walk us through that.
Usually, so we always get to see like who's in our round, and we get to watch them as well. So usually you know who like the really good people are, like the average people and all that stuff like that. So it usually depends on who you're hitting in that round.
When we say hitting, we don't
Speech
mean
vernacular.
Speech vernacular hitting means you got that person in the same round as you, not physical altercation. So it really does depend on who you are getting in your rounds. I was very fortunate this past season to have been a very successful speaker, and but I didn't like to try to compare myself to the other students. I was just like, I think I did okay. Hopefully that came across to the judges. So.
Okay. How about you, Maggie and Megan? Tell us a little bit about your experience so far this year and what you guys are involved in.
We do a thing called duo interpretation, which basically means we take either a 10-minute speech or a movie and make it 10 minutes long, and then we act out and perform and memorize the speech without looking at each other or touching each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you find that easier or harder? If you haven't figured it out, they are twins. But do you find that easier or harder? Doing it with your sister, is that you guys enjoy that? Do you guys have a lot of fun with that, or tell Talk us through that a little bit.
I think we have a lot of fun with it, and I think it's easier for us since we've already had that connection for a really long time. So it wasn't like we needed to bond over anything or like have to make a connection or a relationship. Like it was already something that was embedded. So we could focus more on like actually doing the speech rather than like getting along.
I bet it would make practices easier too because you live together. So
Well, when we had to do a lot from home through COVID, it worked out well because while other duos had a hard time working together, practicing with each other, having them under the same roof was helpful.
That's awesome. Now, Katie, as a coach, obviously a big team, speech and debate. How do you channel the kids into the different specialties? Whether it's debate, whether it's dual interpretation.
Sure.
Do the kids choose that? Do you kind of help guide them that way, or how does that work?
It's a little bit of both. So kids normally come to us thinking, oh, okay, I want to be on the debate side or I want to be on the speech side. I want to write my own speech or I want to perform something. So kind of speech breaks down even further into oratory or interpretation. And so either it's like an acting category, like the girls because they're doing A League of Their Own, the baseball movie.
Oh, great.
So they tell that story and reenact that movie in 10 minutes, or like some of our orators that are doing speeches. But yeah, kids normally come in with kind of an idea of what they're interested in, and then we usually try to lean into where the kids have interests, because where their passions are is generally where their motivation will be to work well and be efficient through the season. But we also, if we see a quality in a student, we'll try to persuade them to go a certain way as well, because sometimes a kid will come to you and say, I'm going to be a humor, and I'm like, I don't know if humor's your thing. But if they're a little quieter kid, because some of the interpretation categories take quite a bit of energy and personality, but we try to find their unique traits and guide them to where they'll be successful, not only for themselves but for the benefit of the team.
I must admit, I was hoping to have some of your debaters here tonight as well, just because every time I debate my wife, she always tells me I lose. So I was hoping for a couple
We
tips.
could give you some tips, but yeah, so these are 4 out of our 5 seniors that are here today.
That's fantastic. All right, so girls, all 4 of you are 3-time state qualifiers, okay?
Correct.
Obviously, you've qualified the last 2 years. State's coming up this in March 4th and 5th in Worcester. What experiences do you take from those first 2 times into Worcester here in a couple weeks?
Well, when I first went to States, I was very anxious and very nervous. First time I went, I was just very anxious and very nervous about it. The second time, I was still very anxious, but I was more prepared to deal with the anxiety that I felt. And I feel like this time I'm really excited to be able to overcome that. And I want to hit it hard, and I want to try to do the best that I can.
Yeah, I have definitely learned that to just do it. You can't really think about all the nerves and the anxiety. You just kind of got to do it.
I try to treat it just like any other tournament. Just do your best.
Anything to add?
Same here.
Fair enough. Now, last but not least, you guys have 10, 11 tournaments throughout the year. Is there any tournament that you really look forward to, or any venue or anything like that really, I can't wait to go
In the
to
regular
X?
season, or?
Yeah.
Regular season, in the past years before we went online, I really looked forward to Tuskegee. It's the Tuskegee Valley tournament, because when your rounds all end and before they start the awards ceremony, they used to have this big dance party.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they would turn on music in the gym, and we'd all just dance and sing songs. I have so many videos of just all my speech friends being silly in the
There
gym.
may or may not be a story of a child who I told not to dance too hard, and he ripped his pants, and
He literally
his
ripped
mother
his
had
pants.
to re-sew him back in before her awards. But we try to balance the professionalism with the good time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, tell us one last thing about tournament. You guys are just in Pennsylvania for the first annual Three Rivers tournament. How was that traveling out of state and competing there?
It was different than normally expected. There are some things that are definitely different in Pennsylvania than there are in Ohio. The way people act or whatever, and the expectations are different in Pennsylvania.
I didn't go to Pennsylvania,
Okay.
but I have been to an out-of-state tournament before, so it is different, and you'll see all these different people, and they do things different than the way you do them, and it's refreshing in a way, because you've been seeing the same people all year for 10 times a day, and so it's refreshing sometimes to just get out of the comfort that and just, you do things differently, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wasn't to this one either. I went to another one, but I feel like the judges, when we got our ballots back, they looked for different things and they had new ideas. Because 'Cause I feel like, again, it's refreshing for like the students to watch new things, but also new judges to give more feedback.
Okay. When a judge gives you feedback, is that something you're looking forward to, or is that something that you're
Yeah.
like,
Depends who the judge is. We have names that we like and names that we take with a grain of salt sometimes.
I feel like a lot of us look forward to it to see what we can improve on. But yeah, because all of us want to do better
Yeah.
than we did last time.
Sometimes, like, some comments can get repetitive, but sometimes, like, they'll bring up something you've never talked about or never, like, thought about, and you're like, oh, that's, like, an interesting point, and I'm glad that you said that. And there's sometimes they just say funny things, and they think you're really good, and it's cool.
I like looking for the compliments.
Anything to add?
I have nothing to add. It's the same for all three.
Cool.
well, that's awesome. You guys are able to humble yourself and take constructive, feedback like that to make yourselves better moving forward. I know it's a very hard thing for a lot of people, especially for you guys to put yourself out there in front of a bunch of people and perform. That's very courageous. So,
A lot of people don't really understand the speech and debate world because unlike a basketball game or a football game, it's not necessarily a spectator sport per se, but it is really impressive to have a group of students who are willing to get up on cold Saturday mornings through the winter in a suit, in heels, in hose, and basically go and put themselves out there to get constructive criticism, because yes, they're getting compliments, but often they're getting criticism as well, and you can be better this way and that way. So it takes a pretty strong, a pretty courageous kid to go through this activity.
very much so. And just, for me as a graduate of Louisville High School, it's just incredible to see whether it's our athletics or our speech and debate or our band, like just in every different avenue, our kids excelling. And so, Katie, just congratulations having 22 qualifiers this year. Once
Thank
again,
you.
a school record. Very excited to see how you guys do at state. And Taryn, Taylor, Megan, and Maggie, thanks for joining us.
You're
You're
welcome. Thank
welcome.
you for
Yeah.
having us.
So, well, thanks for spending your time here at the Leopard Lair. We greatly appreciate it. Have a good night.